In today's Leeds news, good news for Farke. Orta said no on Gyokeres, Bellamy on Joe Rodon, Ampadu update and skipper talk, and James McAtee link. Morning folks, Jay here at The View on Tuesday morning the 19th of November with your Leeds United news. I hope you've all had a really good week so far, had a very nice weekend. There's little bits of stuff floating around and we'll get to them in just a second, but just a reminder on the socials, we're down below here, you can check them all out across Blue Sky, X and Threads for anyone who's on any of those platforms. We're not leaving one for the other, we're across all of them. You can check them out if you want to. But there's a bit of stuff to get into. We'll start around this morning with the news around some potentially positive news coming out of the international break. And Leeds are just about to watch the final international break of this calendar year wrap up before the new year. And players will start to make their return to the club over the next few days. Some already on their way back. Some will finish their final games today before heading back. And Leeds will have an additional day to get ready this time around versus the last international break, with Leeds not taking on Swansea until Sunday, although it is an away game. But Daniel Farke has been given some good news heading into this break. Only Joe Rodon has picked up an injury so far, a bit of a knock to the head in a man-of-the-match performance in Wales' first international game, but has said that he is fine and should be okay for Wales' second game today. Tanaka, Nonto, Joseph, Rodon, Darlow, James, Crew and Junior Firpo will all play today. The rest of the players are all due back. But one player's inclusion in international side yesterday will give Daniel Farke a little bit of good news and maybe ease his mind slightly. Brendan Aronson withdrew from the USA's men's national team's first round quarter-final against Jamaica last week with flu-like symptoms, with the worry that he might be ill for a week or so, and therefore Leeds could miss out on him coming back. But in some good news, Brendan Aronson did make the USMNT's second leg match last night. Again, they won 4-2 and progressed to the semi-final of the Nations League, and he managed to get 20 minutes, so some good news there as well, as in he has played a significantly less amount of minutes than he played during the last international break, and a player who probably needed just a little bit of a rest as well. He's played a lot of football, a lot of travel. The illness probably makes sense in that sense, but having him back will be very good for Daniel Farke, will ease the mind. At the moment, we're not blessed with players in the number 10 position. I'd like to see Willie Nunto have a crack in there, but we're not blessed with them. So it's great to have Brendan back and make sure and know that he is okay heading into the weekend. I'm sure we'll get more detail from Farke on that once the press conference takes place towards the back end of the week. Moving on to a player that Leeds didn't sign but were heavily linked with, and he's probably the most in-form striker in Europe right now, and that is Victor Gyokeres, a player that Leeds were linked heavily with not too long ago. Now some detail has come out on the potential transfer that Leeds had for the player at the time, thanks to quotes made by Victor Orta around his failed attempt to bring the player to Leeds. Speaking to Liga Portugal's business school and reported by Record in Portugal, former Leeds United Director of Football Victor Orta revealed that he felt that £12 million for Victor Gyokeres at the time was just too much money to pay, and he said the following: "When I was at Leeds, I didn't want to give €14 million for him. Cases like that of Gyokeres are the good surprises that football gives you. These things that you cannot measure. What you cannot measure is the impact of the other players that came in." Victor Orta did, however, feel that £18 million for Diego Llorente was worth Leeds pursuing, as well as £10 million for Mark Roque and Rasmus Christensen were both deals that he felt added value to Leeds. But £12 million for Victor Gyokeres, who's now gone on to be averaging a goal a game in Europe and on fire right now across all divisions, and heavily linked with a move to Premier League clubs as well. Leeds did miss out on that one, so yeah, maybe you can't always measure them, but maybe you can some of them. Moving on to a player that is very much at Leeds United and having a good run of form at the moment, that's Joe Rodon. And Craig Bellamy has gone on record this week at praising the Leeds United centre-back, saying that plenty of Premier League clubs will be very, very happy to have Joe Rodon in their side. But he's also talked about Joe Rodon's time at Spurs and why it didn't work out for him there. Rodon has made 50 appearances now for Wales along with Daniel James, which is a significant milestone for any player. But on the failed time at Spurs and why it failed, Bellamy said the following: "It was difficult for him at Spurs due to the quality of players that were at Spurs. I think they believed in him so much that they didn't want him to go, and they were waiting to keep him, but also had one or two players ahead of him, which can happen. It's difficult because you don't want to consistently for so long be a backup, But now, if it wasn't Leeds, there would be other clubs that were really after him this summer. As we see him now at this present moment, of course, you can see why. Rodon's partnership with Pascal Struijk has gone on from strength to strength this season. The more they play together, the better it looks with both of them. And has a little bit of a shaky start well behind him. And we're starting to see exactly what we saw from him this time last year as well. The recovery runs that he does are fantastic. But Bellamy also went on to admit that he did try to sign a player and wanted him while at Burnley as well, which didn't happen. But he did try to get the player, which shows that there were clubs in and around the lower half of the Premier League, top half of the Championship, who would have been very keen to bring in Joe Rodon. Moving on to his Welsh partner, and Ethan Ampadu has been speaking about his time as Leeds United skipper and how he's adjusting to that, as well as an update on his injury return. Ampadu was speaking to the Yorkshire Evening Post about his return and says that he's still very much learning on the job, but is enjoying the role of being Leeds United captain, and said that it's a huge responsibility, but one that he is enthusiastic about. Ampadu was speaking to the Yorkshire Evening Post whilst overseeing a training session at Thorpe Arch for the Chapeltown Junior Girls Under-9 team as part of the EFL's Action Female Pathway Programme Week, which is great to see the Leeds skipper and Leeds players out with the kids in the local area and bringing them into Thorpe Arch is fantastic. You might see those kids come through Leeds at some point in the future, girls or boys. But he was asked about how he's finding the captaincy at Elland Road, and Ampadu said that he was enjoying it but still very much learning on the job and finding his way of doing it. Speaking to the YP, he said the following: "I'm just trying to be myself every day, however players might think I am, but I'm enjoying it. Obviously, I know it comes with big responsibility, but one that I'm really excited about, and one that hopefully I can take in my stride." Ampadu spoke about returning in December and getting Leeds United back to the Premier League, and that is his number one goal upon his return, is to lead the Whites back to the Premier League. He also said on his return that he is slightly ahead of schedule. He is back on the grass doing some recovery work and is looking at a December return. Hopefully Leeds can get him back in just before the big run of games for December, get him some minutes, use the Cup, the FA Cup as an example of getting him some game minutes and get him ready for the back end of the season. He'd be a very, very important player for Leeds United. But yeah, so far so good for Ethan Ampadu. The sooner he's back, the better. And then moving on to a player that has been linked with Leeds United over the last couple of days, and we've kind of had a look at this and thought we'd cover it now where there's some more meat on the bones floating around. And according to Team Talk and Leeds Live, which is why we're covering because Leeds Live are part of this, they claim that Leeds United are very keen on the signing of James McAtee after missing out on the player in the summer. Leeds wanted an initial loan for the player during the summer, but Pep Guardiola was very keen to keep McAtee at the club, citing the player's close control and work in tight spaces might be very beneficial to Man City against certain opposition this season. However, McAtee has played one Premier League game so far this season, clocking up a massive 1 minute of Premier League game time. He has played 2 Champions League games, however, and has scored in one of them, but not exactly the game time that you would expect from a player who Pep Guardiola saw as a valuable member of the squad. But he is falling into that limbo bracket at Man City between being a young prospect and breaking into the first team, when we saw Calvin Phillips amongst several other players that have struggled from that and have then failed to find their form after sitting on the bench for too long at a club. Craig Bellamy talked about being a backup for too long at teams, and James McAtee will have to look at this season. But now, according to the piece in Leeds Live and with Team Talk, they claim that Leeds United are interested in the midfielder and that Manchester City could now be open to a permanent exit of the player. Leeds will face some severe competition with this, and one move that could be a huge stumbling block should Leeds decide to make the move, and that is West Ham's interest in the player. They see McAtee as a replacement for Lucas Paqueta, who has a lot of interest and could leave the club in January. One club that he could go to is Manchester City, with Pep Guardiola being cited as a fan. So there's a very obvious Man City take Paqueta, you get McAtee, there's money involved in that. It could be a very clean swap deal. But Leeds are said to be very keen on the player, although I don't necessarily believe he's the player that Leeds really need right now. He's a very, very good player and would add a lot of quality to Leeds, and there's no doubt if you can get him, go get him. But I'm not sure he's the player Leeds are missing in that attacking area to really unlock defences. But he would still add a lot of goals from midfield and would still be a very good player for Leeds to bring in. And hopefully Leeds will make some moves in January and just give us enough to get over the line in the back end of this season. Leeds have a really good opportunity coming out of this international break now, with some really winnable games and in a block coming into Christmas. It could be a real good chance for Leeds to put themselves in a strong position heading into the Christmas break and hopefully being the top two come New Year's Day. Folks, that'll be it for me today. We'll have some live streams throughout the week looking at what's coming up for Leeds United, as well as some Leeds United manager content as well, which might go out as members first before going on general release. But you can check all that out as well. The Howard Wilkinson piece has gone out as well for general release. And I'll be back tomorrow morning for more Leeds news. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for listening to me, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.